Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Okay, I want to start with a question that came to us from Ireland. And you had answered part of a question from this dad last week, and then they wrote back in with some more information, and they said, Dr. Doreen is brilliant, just had to say it. We're all thinking that too. They say that their child has idiopathic toe walking. The occupational therapist we met didn't impress me, and I haven't met a decent physiotherapist. And I can't figure out how to get my boy off his toes. He has educated me into realizing that not every doctor is equal. Amen to that. The question I have to ask is he capable of walking? He walks for his mother. In fact, he is strong and he is capable of running like an athlete. However, he got into a habit, and anytime I take him out, he insists for the duration of what could be an hour or more of walking being on my shoulders. Here he directs me and tells me where to go. He knows where shops are and what streets have his specific trees on them that he will pick from. My problem is not just smoothly getting from A to B, going into a neighbor's gardens. It's the strain on my shoulders. It's not going to be safe much longer up there. Sometimes he has walked for me, but this is becoming a distant memory. My dream is to walk the streets without him nursing on my shoulders because it makes life difficult. So on your live stream, I would love to learn how to get him off my shoulders. The speech therapist today, who is ABA because I asked, gave me a strategy for him not being on my shoulders. Now the biggest step to free my shoulders. May God bless you. And again, a dad from Ireland. So Dr. Granpeesheh.
A long question, but a very short and easy answer, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I completely understand. And sometimes as parents, we just start to do something, and then before you know it, it becomes the new norm. And then it's a scary thought breaking out of that. And I don't know, Shannon, do you remember how old this child is, or?
I believe this child is younger than 6. I don't remember age. Yeah, that's younger than 6.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a really easy answer, and that is just stop. And, often I think we don't stop these patterns of behavior because we're worried that our kids will tantrum or have a major reaction, but it will stop. I mean, and as you know, Shannon, if dad stops putting the child on his shoulders, it is possible that the child might throw a tantrum, be very angry, and not want to walk. And that's totally fine, because if you can manage it so that there's a place that he actually wants to go, let's say even outside, like, a very short distance, like from one room to another, or just from the front of the house to the park, something very close by. If he does that, then you can still reward him by putting him on your shoulders, but you have to gradually increase the distance that he is walking by himself. Keep the toe walking issue separate from this. They're two separate things. The toe walking could be a number of other things. We could talk about that in a minute, but the fact that he's learned a habit of sitting on your shoulders does not mean that he can't walk. He certainly can walk, and you should absolutely set a plan. Let's say this little excursion around the town. Why don't you start by, you can actually do it forward or backward shaping, however you prefer, You can either start by saying the first, 10 meters he has to walk, and then you will carry him the rest of the way, and then that becomes 11 and 12 and 13. Or you can begin walking him, and as soon as the house is visible, the last 10 meters, let's say, he has to walk home. Either way, you need to start fading out the shoulders and reinforcing the more steps that he takes. So that's an easy one. The toe walking can be different things. Toe walking, there are behavioral things you can do. For instance, you could put high top shoes on him and practice walking with flat feet. Behaviorally, it does work. There's not clarity on why toe walking begins. There are some, I guess, medical folks who believe that toe walking also has to do with kind of holding your bowels. So it's kind of like a convert going to the bathroom. I don't know if he has gastrointestinal issues that may have started that. But regardless, it is definitely something that you can control and gradually reteach him to walk normally.
I know you've mentioned before on the show about that sometimes there's a correlation with a visual issue when they're toe walking too. And,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you what my question is that, because you've taught me always to like be in the perspective of the kiddo and think, what am I getting out of this? And I was thinking about being on, dad's shoulders. I can remember being a little kid and getting to be on my dad's shoulders. And I remember, the difference between when you are the shortest person in the family and the view of what you get to see versus the view of when you are the tallest, which when you're on your dad's shoulders, you are the tallest. And you get to see different things and you get to see the world in a different way. Dad, you've even mentioned that, he knows which trees and he can pick things off of them. Well, that's a big reinforcer. And when you go from that to being the shortest, and I'm just thinking, if it's also a visual thing, that what you see in those two things is vastly different.
Absolutely, Shannon, and that's a great observation. I don't know if you remember, there was a doctor, Dr. Kaufman, and his area of expertise was kind of the visual input of our kids, and he had played around a lot with lenses, like glasses and lenses that would, when you put them on, they changed your visual field in the sense that they kind of made you, it changed the angle of what you were looking at. With toe walking, you're absolutely right. You are kind of putting yourself a little bit higher. When you put on these glasses that this doctor had, your toe walking would decrease because it felt like you're going downhill. It looked like you're going downhill. So you would basically, when you go downhill, you tend to put your weight back. So, and that would eliminate the toe walking. So it could very well be a visual thing. And you do have a very good point that being on dad's shoulders does feel kind of like how it feels like when you stretch yourself or you toe walk. So they could be absolutely related to a visual thing. And that would be worthwhile looking into for sure. And again, one of the things that you mentioned is this child is enjoying like picking fruits off a tree. So maybe you allow him to get on your shoulders when you're underneath a tree, but the rest of the way he has to walk. And so picking fruit off the tree becomes a reward. I kind of feel like a lot of times things might start from a biological perspective, like behaviors might initiate because there's some either a visual thing or a sensory thing that's leading to it, or even a GI thing, and then they become habit. Yeah. And the habit portion is what you can reverse behaviorally. And so I think it's worthwhile trying with this child to just let him be upset if you don't put him on your shoulders. I think that's the hardest thing for parents, is to see their kids just having a major tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing too. And I think it's a lot like panic attacks that, everybody says the hardest thing is not the panic attack. It's after you have one panic attack that you're constantly worried that you're going to have another one. So even if you're not in a panic attack, you're worried that you're going to have a panic attack. And your child might not even be tantruming, but the fear that they will tantrum, and you walk into a family party and you're like, I hope they don't have a tantrum, and the child does one thing, they're not even tantruming, and we escalate into this, oh my gosh. And I know for me, the way I would talk to myself in those moments, the thought process would be, oh no, this is what's going to happen. It's probably my fault. This is going to be the rest of my life. My life will never be better than this. And I wouldn't be in the moment anymore. But I have to say that you guys taught me how to be thinking about that 3-term contingency. What has happened? What can I change? What's the behavior? So if he's already in the tantrum, what's the behavior? Like mentally taking notes, like you could become a court reporter, and that quiets all that other voice. And then it makes you more effective at changing the behavior. That really helped me.
Yeah, and I think also some of it has to do with the inability to predict things, right? So it's kind of like with a panic attack, you never know when they're coming. But in this scenario, I think we just fear doing the thing that's going to initiate the horrible tantrum. And if you know that you have it under control, it becomes a little bit less anxiety provoking, I think. So why don't you have to kind of change your mindset and say, I'm actually going to evoke a tantrum. I'm ready, I'm armed, this is the time, and I'm going to do this. And I know he's going to have a tantrum, but that's totally fine because I'm prepared for this. And I'm just going to wait it out. And if you know that tantrums are not the end of the world and that our kids do settle down, even if the tantrum takes an hour, then you're more brave and more able to do it. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think as parents, we worry about our kids in a different way, right? If it was a typically developing child who tantrumed, many of us would be like, oh, he'll be fine. Like, it's okay, he'll get over it. But with our kids who have a diagnosis, we think we should never let them tantrum. And that's not the case. They can aggress and tantrum and express themselves just like any other child would. But it isn't an expression that we want to reward. It's an expression that we want to extinguish. So when that expression of a tantrum occurs, we need to kind of ignore it.
We did a series a few years back, and we're not able to show it to you at this time, but it was called The A Word. And in it, the little boy loved going outside. He would mand and request to go outside. He would mand for grass. But then they got into a habit where he did not want to hold his mother's hand and he wanted to run away from her. And they were working on several different things with safety, but it had gotten to a critical point. And they show on The A Word that first they sit down and do a social story with him, these crayon drawings that, Jack goes outside with his mom. Jack, holds his mom's hand and he gets to be on the grass. If Jack does not hold his mother's hand, he has to come inside. And every day they would read through the story, and then he would request grass and they would go outside, and she would say, hold my hand. And if he refused, she would say one more time, hold my hand. And if he refused, she would pick him up and take him back inside. Grass is gone. Yeah. And they showed going through it where he threw a tantrum. He tries to bite her because he's so mad at having to hold hands, but they stick to, and they have people there to help with the intervention. And, once he learns, if I don't hold hands, you're going to take me inside, man, he throws the mother of all tantrums, right? And they don't have any reaction. They go inside. At one point, Dad, who I love on this thing, he was like, now see, if you don't, and everybody's like, hey, can you come over here and talk about pie with me? Yeah. Because Dad wants to yak about it. And they're like, hey, what kind of pie did you have yesterday? And he's like, pie, what are you talking about? And later on, he realizes, oh, right, I wasn't supposed to talk about it, right? But it took 2 days, and then he was like, right, I only get to be outside if we hold hands. I want to be outside. I'm holding hands. I'm not biting anyone. I'm not tantruming. And you go, oh, right. It was 2 miserable days, but now he's outside and he's holding hands and everybody's safe. Woohoo, right? It can be done, but you got to stick to it. and get reinforcements like they did. They had other people there to help, so that if, you know, mom needed help carrying him to get him inside and staying calm, cool, and collected and not being bit, you know, you do what you have to do.
Definitely.
I love that we use we used to be able to say, so go and watch this episode, and when you see someone else doing it, it's so much clearer than when you're going through it, right, Dr. Granpeesheh?
Oh yeah, it's hard initially. You know, I always, when I give advice to parents, I wish I was there, because it's so, you have so many options. Like, first of all, there's so many different things you could do. It's just very hard because the child will react differently, and then you kind of have a new plan and you have to adjust your plan and all that sort of stuff. But I think the basis of this one in particular is just, don't worry if he has a big tantrum. It's not a big deal. Just make a rule. And the rule is, today you're going to have to take, 10 steps. Today you're going to have to take 20 steps. And if you do that, then the rest of the way I will carry you. And just keep in that number.
He will get it.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.